Good afternoon. I'm Elaine Douglas, and this is If I Knew Then What I Know Now. And this is my wife, Diane. One of the things that we wanted to talk about today is the importance of acceptance. And part of that is breaking through denial. So denial is often the first place we go. And it can be both good and bad. And good because not facing the realities of this disease, of these diseases, can feel safer. But denial can also lead to regrets. It can prevent you from being present in the reality. Sometimes denial keeps a family from talking honestly about things because we assume that the other or others are in denial and that they want to stay there. But breaking out of denial is while it's really difficult and will cause strong feelings, it is a way to get to acceptance. So allow yourself to feel, then move on. Then, or whenever you can, learn about the disease. Learn about what is your reality. And one of the ways to do that is conferences.
And you know, Elaine, conferences are great, I think, in providing you with that information. As a retired librarian, I was all about finding about valid and reliable information, particularly about MSA. But another benefit of conferences that I think can be overlooked sometimes is that there are medical professionals at conferences who are very knowledgeable about your particular disease, and they have time to talk to you one-on-one quite frequently. And probably for me, the most important of all, you get to know a community of people who are walking the same path that you're on and who understand what you're going through. The people that we met at a conference became almost like a second family to us.
Yeah. Materials also really help.
Yes, the materials really give you an important piece. It gives you the opportunity to see your disease, your patient's disease, through scientific eyes, through the eyes of others who have recorded it before. You can find information on the websites. CurePSP.org has wonderful resources, as does the MSA Coalition.org and other national organizations. When you're looking for materials on the web, use your filter, but one of the filters might be, would like to use articles that are .gov, .org, items that have a bit more probably respectability than some others. But materials are important for you to use in helping learn more about the disease and ultimately to care for your patient.
Yeah. So acceptance. We're all dealing with incurable and terminal illnesses. And even if we don't like what we hear, and particularly we don't like the prognosis, that information that we get provides what we need to direct our lives through this. So don't be ashamed of the disease or of the realities that come with it.
I really had a hard time with the idea of shame at first because my David had a position that put him in the public eye a lot. And my fear, I think, was that as soon as people knew his diagnosis, they would sideline him and see him as somehow less than the person he was. But finally, I came to the realization that the only way to help other people through their life challenges was to be open with them about our own. And so in that shared space, I think you can find comfort and you can find meaning.
Yeah, when you talk about finding meaning, there's a lot of ways that people can do it. And patients oftentimes want to do it before they reach the end of their journey because they want to give back. And the caregiver can be a big support for that. And as an example, I'll tell you, my wife, before she passed away right after diagnosis, she sat for a while and decided that the best thing that she could do was to have a social media presence, something we never had, and could share her story, which she did on a daily basis throughout the last 15 months. she also wanted to raise monies. So she asked me and then got some of our relatives and offspring to help, and then friends. And ultimately we had a series of fundraisers that came about because she simply said, I want to give back, seeing what I'm going through. So oftentimes that finding meaning is really important for both the patient and the caregiver, and can make the journey, I think, better as you go through those last months.
Thanks. So if I knew then what I know now, I would remind myself that Diane is still living and find the richness during this time, even despite the diagnosis. And here's Larry's wife, Colleen. So how to live your lives and not just the diagnosis. One of the things that we found important was to detangle from the tangible. Not that the tangible is not important, things have to happen, but try not to get so caught up in the tangible realities of the disease in a way that makes you lose the rest. So all the rest besides those things that have to happen. So live within the constraints. So there is this new reality, and there's a lot to do on a practical level, and there is still so much more. Finding meaning is a key way to go through this.
I think
sorry, go ahead, Larry.
I'm sorry.
No.
Just say kind of the bridge between the two, to live within the constraints and find meaning, is a simple statement that I learned my very first day after the diagnosis, which is the patient deserves the best quality of life possible. And with that, you come up with ideas that can help that patient meet that best quality of life possible. And it doesn't mean go out and spend $1 million. It doesn't mean go out and find the best foods and the best dining establishments, or taking long vacations, but it does mean finding those things that allow the patient and you to enjoy life to its fullest and provide that best quality. We found it with a lot of different ways you can do it. A bucket list, take a bucket list and then find ways you can meet that bucket list. You can also talk about ways that you move forward as you go through the journey. So begin planning with the patient, and through that planning, it might help you better prepare for the journey you're on.
Right. Key for us was identifying what brought us meaning and joy. So then traveling, that's another way. What we were told was travel while you can, how you can.
That's exactly right. We were fortunate enough to get a clear, accurate diagnosis very early. And for that, I will always be grateful, because I know that that's not always the way it goes. But what it did was give us the opportunity to take about 1.5 years to travel a lot with family and friends, doing the things that we would have done in retirement had we had a normal retirement. And that gave me memories to draw upon for years to come. And when David was done and tired, he absolutely let me know, and we stopped.
Yeah. And if you can't travel, maybe it's a book club, whatever that thing is that gets you out of the things that just can pull you down. So finding quality time with family and friends, with each other, we found it really, really transformative when we started savoring the moments. Our palliative care team reminded us that the relationship we had was more than just a patient-caregiver relationship. So your previous relationship still stands. So whether you're a son to a father, or a husband to a wife to a husband, whatever it is, that is your primary relationship. One of the thoughts is that really worked for us was enjoying morning coffees together.
Oh, Elaine, that's something we did too. We always watched Jerry Seinfeld's Comedians in Cars Getting Coffee. while we had breakfast. I helped David with his breakfast, and we just treasured the laughs that gave us both, and it got us off to a positive start every day.
Great.
The other thing you can do is watch shows that might have certain meaning. One of the things that my wife and I wanted, well, my wife wanted to do, and then I joined her, and I got equal meaning out of it, was watching old TV shows from her childhood and early adulthood, because those were happy times for her. And going through the process of losing one's ability to do so much as an adult, it gave her a chance to think back and have good memories. And we had a lot of good memories that we shared from that time, discussions. And the other thing you want to do is during this time, you want to be patient. Patience is something that is so important. If you can be patient, it gives you that quality time you need. And just a simple example I've shared with these ladies before is just to be able to sit at the side of the chair while she's in the recliner, just sitting, holding your loved one's hand, whether it's husband, wife, whatever, and just talking and sharing. And they're really the most intimate and best moments I think you have during those during the last couple of years of the journey. When they're unable to make it around, you're there to help them.
Absolutely. So if I knew then what I know now, I would have the best days we possibly could for as long as we possibly could. You are not alone. And this shows Diane, her husband David, and their kids and grandkids. Just remember that social support matters. Nurture it. Ask for what you need. Maybe you have a strong social support already, or maybe you're going to create one through this. But make sure that you fill your needs and it's not just you alone. So developing a network of support, there's many ways to do this. Some people have a strong church family support groups. I know that our atypical Parkinson's support group, sponsored by CurePSP, was a huge support network for us, and I still am in touch with those people. Connect with others who share your experience. So support groups, there's Facebook pages, there are support lines through these organizations. These can offer practical strategies, tangible tools, and emotional support. And remember also that you're not just receiving, you're giving. So share your journey, share what you've learned. This is really how we do this. We do this by the experience of our tribe. So if I knew then what I know now, I would stay connected to the people who know. So here's some general lessons that the three of us came up with that we hope would be helpful. And Larry already talked about the importance of patience. Providing care and having patience at the same time can be a challenge, but you as a caregiver can do things for yourself and for your family that can help ensure that you are patient. So what are those things? Managing stress. It is stressful. I've never met anybody who's gone through this without some level of stress. But how can you manage that? So practicing self-care. This could be yoga. This could be meditation. The other part of self-care I want to mention is back, taking care of your back. We are required to do a lot of lifting. And if we keep our back healthy, we'll be able to do a lot more for a lot longer. So ask for help. What do you need?
One of the things you can get besides putting together a support team from your family and friends, which really is ultimately the support team that'll be with you through the entire time, my guess is. Early in the disease process, there is a support called palliative care, and palliative care is just now coming into the scene for neurodegenerative diseases. It's previously something that was used with cancer patients. And now with neurodegenerative disease patients, they're expanding out. The system that they provide you, from the nurse and the social worker to the caregivers, they are all a part of helping you and your team do I don't want to say better job, but do a more complete job, and at the same time give you some time off when you might need to get away for an hour or two and get some of that relaxation. So they are a big help, as are some technologies that are now available, especially with speech augmentation. And the research in these diseases is constantly advancing, and keeping up on the research can provide you with access to clinical trials, access to new treatments, medications, et cetera. So all of those are things that will help your support team through this time and process.
Absolutely. So key is avoiding burnout, or at least paying attention to when it's coming and then try to do something. Getting enough sleep, staying active, a little short walk, even if it's in the house, to keep yourself going. And then I do want to say that respite is really important, and I was able to use that several times, which was made a big difference, just to have a couple nights where I could sleep. Forgiving yourself, very important. Especially, I would feel so guilty about Diane going into respite, but you have to forgive yourself when you take care of yourself and for any mistakes you make.
Yeah, it's really important to be able to do that. I think when things don't go the way you'd want them to go, or where you lose patience, which we all do, or get frustrated, you just have to take a deep breath and step back and realize that there's no cure for being human. We all are human, and just regroup, forgive yourself, and move on.
Absolutely. Re-emphasizing the support team from family and friends. So all these things will free you to have a balanced focus on care, knowing that you will be doing the care, but how can you balance that? And how can you ensure that you're supporting the best quality of life that is possible for both of you and for the family? So I want to end with this. If I knew then what I know now, I would believe that I am doing the best I can. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you, Elaine. Thank you, Diane. Thank you, Larry. And hello, everybody that is tuning in here today at the Caregiver Conference. We appreciate you being with us. And thanks so much to the MSA Coalition board members that joined us today to talk about such an important topic. And I also want to take a moment to, the three of you really touched on it in your presentation, but if you are not registered for tomorrow's family conference, we are going to be touching on these topics again with two presentations, one on specifically discussing family dynamics with Jessica Schur from UNC, and also the benefits of creating a care team with Diane Breslow, who's a social worker who works very closely with CurePSP. But in these last few minutes, we received so many fantastic questions from those of you that are participating today. And I wanted to take a few minutes to pose some of these questions to you three. The first one I'm going to start with is a question that came in live this afternoon. And the question is, my husband recently had a bad fall and fractured several ribs. I have been monitoring him 24/7, and this gets very difficult. He is starting to try to do more things on his own again, and I find him in the kitchen or bathroom with no walker. Do I let him start to be more independent, or I become the enforcer and try to make him always call me?
I have something to add to that, or to contribute. It's really hard. It's really hard to enforce things. What I tried to do is just use the words of whatever medical provider was in charge. But here was the magic thing, and I learned it from a provider who would say it to Diane, and they would say, "Do it for Elaine." So if you won't do it for yourself, do it for Elaine. Like, can she pick you up if you fall again? Do you know how much harder this will be for her if this gets worse? So that really helped in our situation.
Another suggestion might be to be prepared for those sorts of things. Ask your husband if he would wear a gait belt and keep a gait belt around him all the time. If he's not using a walker, the gait belt helps you. If he suddenly begins to fall or calls, you can grab a hold of it and hold him up. And it might be a good emergency way. So maybe a piece of technology would help as well.
Thank you. I heard shifting perspectives might help, and some technology is really comes in handy in those moments. So thank you for answering that question. Here's another. My husband was diagnosed with PSP less than 1 year ago, and now falls so frequently that he needs constant supervision. I'm having a hard time trusting him to stay upright and feel that he needs constant supervision. So this is very similar to the last question. But how do you regain trust in sometimes being able to manage these symptoms, regaining trust?
You know, the biggest problem that I found all the way through the medical process is that the caregiver assumes many responsibilities, but one of them is being the advocate for the patient. And being an advocate calls in a lot of skills that some are nascent, haven't been used yet, and some we've used in the past and just suddenly realize we have to use them again. And really, it's important from my background and the time I spent with my wife. If I wasn't a strong advocate and addressed some of those issues immediately, I would have been a lost person, and so would she. So I think that's one aspect of the answer.
Absolutely. We also had a question about knowing when it was time to engage hospice services, and this is something that we talk about a lot in our support groups and in our webinars within the CurePSP community. Could any of you talk to your own experience about when you knew it was time and what that was like for you?
I think most people make the mistake of waiting too long. You know, that it's tremendous help. And it's just readily there. Those people are, I know somebody in our conference said they're not just human beings, they're angels. You know, they really can help you in many, many ways. Elaine, you look like you were going to say something too.
Yeah. Well, going back to Larry's plug for palliative care, we were using palliative care, and they pointed out before we were ready that perhaps it was time to go to hospice based on what they saw. But the final turning point was a day that we went to the appointment. It had taken me over 2 hours to get Diane up and dressed in the wheelchair out, to get her out of the house to go. She got there, she could hardly sit up. And they said, "How hard was it for you to get here today?" And Diane said, "Really hard." And they said, "What if you didn't have to come anymore? I think it's time for hospice." And they had to say it a couple times, and we went into hospice, and it was the best thing. We had the most wonderful hospice team. It truly gave Diane a lot more energy not to have to go out of the house. And they were right on, because it was not long after that she was not able to get out of bed any longer. So luckily we had them in the house. They came, we got everything set up, and they were there when the time was that we totally needed them, because she was bedridden at that point. And I loved them. I loved them.
Yeah. I can share my real quick experience. Hospice also helped us. It's usually referred 6 months before passing by the doctor's ideas and recommendations. My wife was just the perfect patient because she was given hospice on August 4th, and 6 months to the day later she passed, and hospice was there that entire 6 months. The best part about hospice is when you're in those last 6 months, When I heard earlier somebody say they're taking care of their patient 24/7, you literally are 22/7 when you're taking those last several months, and having somebody that's hospice that can check your medication, pick up the medication, bring it to you, help you with all the support you need, be there to take the oxygen levels, etc. I will tell you, hospice is a real plus when it gets into those last 6 months. And if you feel it's time, talk to the doctor. The doctor will listen to you. Typically, if you've been a good advocate, the doctor will listen.
Just one quick thing to add. Yeah, what Larry reminded me of is once we had the hospice team, it took me about a week. I let go of all the research, of calling, of contacting doctors, of worrying about like this little symptom. I gave it up to them. And that truly made me able to be present. Many of my tasks as caregiver were gone. Not the tangible stuff, but you know that like, oh, she has a rash, which doctor do I call and what should I do? So it was wonderful.
And I am curious just from my own knowledge, because again, this is something that we talk about a lot, you know, when it's time to find hospice and you know, one's struggle in finding the right hospice. And I'm wondering if the hospice team that you landed on was the first one that you found for all three of you, or was there a bit of a shopping around process that you went through?
We only had one option, so
one option.
Yeah, but it was great. So
wonderful.
We had several options in the area where I live. We took the first referral, and at the end of the 6 months, I gave them a B+. They did very well. And they fulfilled every obligation. There were a couple of instances where I could have kicked them heartily, but otherwise they did a wonderful job. And so I was the first one.
And we asked another couple that was further along in the journey who they use. So this woman was on hospice, and they said this one absolutely, because we did have a choice of several, maybe 3, and they were right. Everything they said proved to be correct.
So personal referral can go a long way. And of course, locationally, as you mentioned, Diane, sometimes, you know, the options won't be as many. But thank you all so much for your insight and for sharing such a wonderful presentation and so many important lessons. We really appreciate you being here today. And thanks again to the MSA Coalition for all that they do to support the MSA community. We appreciate it.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Joanna.
Thank you so much.